a session that I did at Game Technology Brisbane, where I was talking about my game development process with Xcode, and obviously there I was talking to an audience that I can actually see, and just my background, I'm just going to quickly go over that. So currently I have my own little studio called Smithsoft. Make a game called Pandora's Books, which is a mobile game. All of our games are mobile. Second. And there is no ability for me to actually see. Oh, Twitch, you are hilarious. Twitch, you are so hilarious. All right, well, I'm going to mute that because it sounds like maybe what's going on, that like even though the bandwidth is really good, maybe it's some kind of crazy filtering or something that QuestNet is doing with their stuff. I'm just going to plow on regardless, in the hope that you guys can actually see what I am doing over here. But anyway, yes, so Pandora's Books, this is the game that I make on mobile. It runs on the Apple TV as well. Apple TV down there. Also runs on this crazy thing, which is the biggest iPad known to mankind, the 12-inch iPad Pro. So when you think about it, if you're building using those tools, you're actually targeting quite a number of devices. You can also, of course, actually target Mac desktop. So that sound is my my Mac Pro, which is like the tower, and yeah, my thing is that you know, I really like working natively. So if you just look at my LinkedIn here, for example, I'll just have another look at my OBS. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that. So most of my work has been mobile. So I worked for Nokia for quite a long time, building 3D frameworks, and worked on this guy. This is a Nokia N9, which runs MeeGo, which is a toolkit based on Qt. So I spent a few years building a OpenGL framework for that thing. Prior to that, I worked for Google, and I actually rocked up to my first day at Google in Silicon Valley, and this thing had only just recently hit the streets. This is an original iPhone, and it pretty much transformed the whole face of personal computing, because suddenly people who had never had a computer per se had the ability to actually play games on a high color device that could just slip into their pocket. So that was the time that I sort of came to that that stuff out of the background of having done a lot of fairly low level sort of software development. So I came out of the back of that and set up my own game studio. So that's where I come to gaming from. A little bit different maybe to some folks, but I've discovered that in the games industry everybody comes at it from a different angle. There's so many different routes that people come from as they get into game development. So I don't think there's any invalid route. I think if you're an artist or a programmer, you might be able to still do a little bit of art or a little bit of programming, and people bring their own skill set. That's what I think is awesome about it. So what I'm hoping today is to just give you an entree into my methodology, how I built Pandora's Books, how I apply the coding skills that I've built up over the years to the problem of getting games onto iPhones. So as I say, I did build up some of the material that I'm going to cover today for a talk, and it was kind of sort of limited in that you know, I had a particular like pattern that I was going to follow with the material that I had. And by the way, that material is available on my GitHub, which is over here, Sarah Smith, SpriteKit versus Unity. There's also a bunch of scripts and things that we're going to talk about. So if you want to get the same starter project that I'm about to show you, you can go download that guy. But what we're going to do is, I'm not going to work on Pandora's books, we're going to actually start a new project, and we're going to build an iOS game. Press next, and it's going to be Twitch TV, and I'm going to call it Marco, because Marco, you are my biggest fan. I love you right now, dude. I'm so happy you're here to give me some backup. It's going to be au.com.smithsoft. Yeah, there we go. So you'll see that in a similar way to Android, I've done a bit of Android development as well, obviously the Linux devices. We want to have some kind of unique identifier, because that thing is going to specify for us what the unique application or game is that I have up on iTunes Connect. So if we ever publish this thing to the cloud, that's how that's going to be demonstrated there. Now normally what I would do is I would go straight to Universal here. I'm just going to choose iPhone this time, just to make things a little bit simpler. And this is new in iOS 10. I really love how this works. This is going to integrate Gameplay Kit into our new game. So let's press next, and what's going to happen is Xcode is going to go ahead and create an entire project. I'm going to ask it to create a Git repo for us on Mac. So let's click Create. Bam. There we go. So straight away it's put in a bunch of code for us on their template. So when you install Xcode into your Mac, now by the way, one thing about building is you kind of need one of these things. This is a 4-5-year-old laptop. It's worth about $300. 2012 laptop, and I still use it to do all my development. You can get one of those things secondhand. My good friend James, hey James, if you're out there, he does his development on an old Mac that he found in a dumpster. They're pretty cheap. Now, obviously, you can't just use any Windows machine to run Xcode, but given that you have a Mac, you can just pull Xcode down for free. It doesn't cost you a cent. Doesn't matter what kind of plugins or anything. It's going to be free to use. It is quite big, but inside of this package here, because I could actually jump in here and look, there's a whole lot of templates and all the actual tool chain and everything's all packaged in there, including the command line stuff. And it actually gives you templates for your complete game. So the game that it gives you initially is kind of just this Hello World thing, and it's kind of set up for the iPad. I'm going to change it a little bit. I'm just going to make the background sort of a grey colour so it's a little bit easier to see what's going on. Now I'm just going to show you guys what happens if I run this on the emulator. So see at the top there, I've told it to build for the desktop emulator, which is currently emulating an iPhone 7 Plus. Super handy to have all these emulators, but man, it is really laggy. So it's a little bit like, it's going to be a lot quicker if I actually have the emulator running, so I can actually come in here and go open developer tool and have my simulators actually running, and that would have made it a little bit quicker because it wouldn't have actually had to boot that up. But as you can see, it's actually having to run the iPhone Plus emulator there. I'm going to have to scale this thing down because there's no way is it going to fit on the screen. Let's go down to say 25%. So because the iPhone 7 is actually a 3X Retina device, what happens is the artwork that you would put onto your iPhone 7 or iPhone 6 is going to be 3X. The video buffers on that device are actually 3X, and then it downsamples to the screen, so you wind up with, I think, something like 2.4. So by the time I display that emulator on screen, I've actually got this crazy, it's like downsampled, upsampled, 3 different ways, and you'll notice that despite the fact that this emulator is running on the most powerful desktop computer that Apple produces, the Mac Pro that I've got sitting over here, with like crazy amounts of RAM, I'm still only getting 16 FPS on a Hello World program. So that is the number one reason why I do not recommend that you use the emulator when you're developing games on Mac. Second reason is that I have a cursor here. I can't touch this thing with my finger and actually get anything happening. You will make terrible mistakes because you're going to be trying to, develop gameplay using your pointy old mouse cursor. It is really not going to happen. You're going to get the size of things wrong. You're going to get all of your touch interaction wrong. Now what I'm going to try to do for you guys is run my phone over here. So iPhone 6. And iPhone 6. I don't know what that audio will do, it doesn't really matter. But so that is going to be the actual screen of my phone. So if I flip back over to my Xcode, hopefully you guys can see that this is my actual phone. And now I'm just gonna let's see if I launch Pandora's Books here. You see that that is actually really my phone. That's not an emulator, and that's the actual real game running there on the screen. I'll just show you this game real quick. So I have been working on this for a little while. This is all 2D graphics, and as you can see, runs pretty fast. Native development stack, obviously, and what you're seeing there is actually running natively on my phone. So that's my game there. Yay, I made this. All 2D. What we're going to be covering today is all 2D. So let me just quit out of that and go back to horizontal again. So you're convinced, right? Hopefully that is actually the real phone. I'll see if I can just scale that down a bit. I wonder if it's going to let me. Yep, there we go. A little bit easier to deal with if it's not quite so huge and enormous. Right, so Xcode, and we're going to run this directly on the phone. Actually, maybe I have. That's right, I upgraded that phone. God damn it. That's so frustrating. Wonder if I have another device here that I can use. Let's see, guys, if we can use this thing instead. This thing being my iPad. Yeah, this is going to be interesting because it's actually so like a 4-year-old device, so please rotate for me. You're going to rotate. Display. So maybe we have to do this portrait. It's kind of a pain in the bum. What I'm going to do is keep pressing on, and I'm going to download in the background the latest version of Xcode. Totally funny story, guys. In the development for my game, I've actually used Apple's on-demand resource system, which is kind of this thing for it's like DLC packs basically, and it's a super awesome system in theory. I love the idea of it. Apple hosts your stuff for free, and yeah, I love that, that they would host your stuff for free. Super neat of them. But we ran into this crazy issue, and it turns out that a lot of other people have the same damned issue, is your game boots up, and then some percentage of the players actually experience this issue where the DLC packs are not able to be downloaded due to on-demand resources just saying, hey, I have never ever heard of your asset pack. So all right, well, let's go back. What we're actually looking at now is Apple's Scene Kit editor. I've got my cinema monitor here turned down in resolution just to try to make the frame rate nice and tight. So I'm just going to delete this label out of this scene file. What these SKS files are is Apple's serialization. One thing I get asked sometimes when I'm doing speaking gigs for this stuff is, hey, you know, why don't Apple port Xcode to, say, Windows? Part of the reason is that this serialization format is all kind of binary, and in the back end they're actually using OpenGL and quite a lot of the hardware to present this view. So it's actually using all OpenGL here, even though this is 2D artwork. None of this is just done in software with sprites, it's all OpenGL. And what that means is that, I mean, sure, they could make it completely cross-platform, but how many times with a game, and that's basically what this is effectively running a game right here in this editor view. I'm just going to name that, so we're going to call it that, main game scene. Yeah, so that's the reason anyway. It's a lot of the serialization stuff is pretty low level. And interesting data point, when they first started coming out with these editable game scene files, it would actually hard crash your entire Mac if you had an external monitor plugged in. All you had to do was click on an SKS file and the whole thing would just crash down to a little white dot, and then you'd have to reboot your whole computer. Not good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download that in the meantime. We're just going to work directly here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is add one of the new things that happened in iOS 10. We're going to have to go to Universal for this, aren't we? Which is a thing. You wouldn't believe, like, I had all of this presentation all worked out the last time I did this, and just all of this stuff. See, I used a good word there, polite word. All of this stuff is going on. I'm just going to check the chat and see if you guys had any question. Regarding the phone, yeah. So so I was mentioning about that ODR issue. I actually upgraded my phone to this iOS beta version, and of course, unless I have the corresponding Xcode, it's not going to talk to my phone at all. But bear with me, guys. We will work around this. I should be able to do most of what I need to do anyway. Yeah, so one of the interesting things they added was this tile map editor, and if anybody has seen my other presentation, you'll know what was involved with this. So I'm going to add in a sprite kit tile set, and I'm going to use the grid-based tile set. They've got a number of ones there. You can actually create like an isometric sort of tile set. I'm just going to do a grid-based one, which is typical of sort of, say, a top-down roguelike type of thing. Normally what you would do, of course, is like I can imagine that it's like a garden tile set. So let's say zombies have invaded our garden. We're doing a zombie game where the garden tile sets, we've got grass and dirt and water, maybe a pond or something. Normally, of course, you would actually use all your own artwork for this, but I'm just going to use the one that the template one that Apple gives you. So we'll call that garden tile set. So they actually have one here with grass and everything in it. The way this works is you can just by default have these single ones, but they do these. So if I had a very basic tile set, what I could actually do is say, like, add a new tile group like this, and I could just create like a single tile. But by creating all these variants, what it does is it allows you to sort of paint them, and as you paint tiles, it's going to add, depending on where the boundary is, it's going to add all these boundary corners in. And what's actually even more interesting is if you look at these water tiles, you can actually animate them, which you do. So I click on this one here, as I just have a frame, set of frames for my sprites, and it's actually going to animate through all of those. So it's kind of tedious going through and actually adding all of those, so I'm just going to use the tile set that Apple provides you with. And for my scene here, I'm going to make it the size of an iPhone 6 Plus, and it's going to be landscape. And I'm going to add in a tile map. Tile map like this into here. I'm going to put it at 0, 0. And I'm going to make it, it already knows how big the tiles were in this garden tile set. I should make it 24 by 24. So if we scroll out, we can see that this is going to create a game where the iPhone screen is going to give us a view onto a much larger game field. So let's edit this tile map. And I'm going to start out by just doing like a bucket fill of this kind of dirt tile. Fill it all up like that. And then I'm going to paint onto it some grass using this brush like that. The way they have this set up, the tiles have some transparency on them, so the result of that is you get these transparent areas. If I was doing my own tile map, I'm just dragging this with my mouse here as I paint. If I was doing this, I probably wouldn't do it that way. I guess it kind of makes it possible for you to have you know, like, it's sort of an easier thing to do if I'm having you know, multiple different tile types sort of joining up and bordering with each other. But it does kind of make for an area where you've got, like, you know, all these blank pieces, which I don't like so much. But this is just kind of for demonstration purposes, so we won't worry about that too much for now. So you can imagine this could be our garden. Now what I'm going to do is add into this like a backing piece, so we don't have to look at that area. So I know I have 128 pixel sprites, and what was it, 32 times? Is that right? 4096. So I'll make a sprite that is 4096 points by 4096 points in size. I'll put it in the middle, and I'm going to Z order it behind a scene a little bit. How big was that? So it was 24. Alright, so 32 by 128. Oops. 32 times 128. Did I say 496? I think I did. 24 by 128. 3072. I can maths good. I can type good. 3072. I'm just going to check the chat, see if you guys are having a big laugh at my my mistakes. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, guys. This is flying without a harness here. So it's going to download eventually. We'll eventually get to go hopefully back to our hardware device. Now I am going to zoom back in here, and I'm going to make the color of this, sample it to be the same as my sand, maybe a little bit darker. There we go, that looks alright. Alright, so that's going to be our scene. Now let's see what happens. Is it going to let us actually run it on my iPad? What are you going to do to me, Xcode? I'm going to find out. I'll see what it does. So I could upgrade it. No, it's not going to let me do that because that won't work. So instead, I'm going to have to violate my... Guys, didn't I just say never ever use the emulator? And then what happens? I did actually have the old version of everything on my iPad, on my laptop, but the fan spins up really loud when I'm Twitch streaming, as I discovered last night on my test. And it kind of drowns everything out, so not a good look. Alright, so should have an emulator firing up any second now. iPhone 5 emulator. Any minute. Just while that emulator is actually starting up, I'm going to have a look at some sprites here. So I set these things up to try to save a bit of time. The actual artwork that I'm going to use is this guy, PZUH. It's kind of cool, makes some pretty good artwork which you can actually buy. So I'm just going to give a plug right here for all of his stuff. You can buy some really cool art packs. I actually bought some art packs for a previous game of mine, but for now I'm just going to use some of his freebies. So he's got these zombie sprites and also this adventurer girl sprite, which are both freebies. So what I did was I downloaded these packs as zip files, and then I just went right ahead and unzipped them inside of where did I put it? Game Tech presentation. By the way, if you've used a Mac and you're wondering about how I get my nice windows, I could not do it without the what did I call it? I called it Marco, didn't I? Where did I put it? There we are, Twitch TV Marco. So that's where our project is. Right in there. So normally normally what I would do is, if I was working with my artists, I would have them I'd drop all my folders, all my stuff into a top level folder like that. So I'd have my download there, and over here, and it would be just a big bunch of sprites. Of course, I'm hammering my connection like crazy. So I'll do that. I'll go through doing that demonstration of how I get my asset pipeline happening for Xcode in a second, once those things actually download. But if I have a look in my Dropbox to where I already have these sprites, I'm just going to use this hero character here as my icon. And if I go to my terminal and go to my build directory, is it desktop? Where did I put it? So let's imagine this is my directory where all my artwork's going to be, and here's my sprites. What I do with my hero, which might be, say, oh, okay, so it's finally downloaded. Move downloads, start at zip here. Right, so here's all of our artwork. So here's the artwork for our hero, and I'm just going to use this thing. Mac actually has this kind of cool thing where you can rename a bunch of files. I'll show you how that works in case you weren't aware of it. So I'm going to rename everything that has a bracket like that, just to make these files a bit more manageable. Get rid of that. And then I'm going to rename by prepending. hero in the front, rename. Okay, so our hero idle is going to go over here and become our icon. Yeah, so I wrote a script that I tend to use for a bunch of things. So all that's really done is just resize that so that I can actually use it for my icons. And if I go into my game tech presentation, so this is what I would do, is I would have kind of my folder here where I've actually got the source of all my files and where I'm translating them, massaging them, getting them ready to go in, and then I would have my Xcode over here like this. So let's just have a look at the emulator. Didn't actually display our tile map. So there's our little emulator trying to pretend you're not actually a phone. You're just a pretend phone. You're an emulator. So it's really not doing a very good job of rotating, is it? So let's just do a complete clean and a tile map node. Make sure it's actually being included in the target. Yes, yes. So it should actually work. Try it again. Well, that's different. Huh. Wow. Yeah. So clean that. Come over here. Uninstall our thing, and click the home button. Try running it again. See if we've got our Xcode. It's nearly there. Seriously. Ask anyone who was at the demo the other weekend. This worked so much better. Default tile group index too large to fit into 32-bit integer. Alright, so maybe what's going on is that our tiles are too big? Seriously? I don't think so, but alright, let's, it really shouldn't. There's no way that it would be making that too big. Surely not. I don't know why it would do that. Let's just try making it a bit smaller and see if that helps. It could be the memory constraints of the iPhone 5. That's some kind of super wacky API problem there, right there. That should not be happening. So what it's trying to do is it is unarchiving unarchiving the SKS file, and when it unarchives the tile set, saying give me a 32-bit integer. But it looks like it's a 64-bit integer. So it seems I've never seen that crazy ass bug before. So why would it do that? Maybe it's some kind of 64-bit version issue, because a 5 is a 32-bit phone. Oh, that would be just too horrible to contemplate. 64-bit. There isn't really too many 64-bit devices, too many 32-bit devices around nowadays that you actually want to target, but let's just bump a few of these things up and try this again. I reckon that's going to be the fix. That thing has nearly arrived. Hardware, rotate left. And I'm gonna do this icon just while that's happening. So how do we do an icon? So we've got our assets, we've got our app icon here, and it's going to tell us what we need. I'm not going to have an iPad icon because we told this thing to be just an iPhone app. So it's got all the slots for us. So if I pull up my icons that I created here, put this over that side, get rid of that. 20.2 times icon is going to be 40. 3 times is going to be 60. The iPhone itself, 2 times at 60 point. 2 times at 60 point is going to be that. 3 times at 60 point is going to be 180. So that's our actual app icon. Let's not worry about the spotlight one for now. I'll remove that one. So that's how we would go about filling out the icon. Let's have a look at our simulator. Okay, so we actually have some tiles happening on our simulator now. Rotate left. Yeah, so we see a bit of grass and a bit of stuff like that. And we can interact with it. Still getting absolutely abysmal frames per second. It's kind of hilarious. Okay. Other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my hero character from my sprites over here, and I'm just going to drop it into my scene. Actually, let me cancel that out. Let's imagine I had my raw artwork that I had just downloaded from my zip file, which was, where did I put it now? Downloads. Downloads. Yeah, here we go. These PNGs. So we had our hero idle. So right now that's 641 pixels, and that's pretty common. If you've got artists, like this to me looks like it's been done with a vector-based program, so they can come out as big as you want. But often you get artwork that would come in really, really big. So let's imagine that's happened this time, and I'll show you that process. I might drop that in there like that. Embiggenate that to the whole screen. Now I would zoom this in. Did this actually, yeah, they're fully downloaded. So let's see. Guys, I bet you are way more frustrated than I am by this, but I am hella frustrated. So we'll just see if we can fire up this Xcode right here. That would be kind of interesting. I know it takes a little while to install this, but if it works, then I'm going to be able to work straight onto my iPhone again, which is exactly what I really want to do. So let's have a look at this. What I would do is, in trying to import artwork, I would drag my character in like this, and I would know that that's going to be my screen. So I would look at the properties of it, and I would kind of see how big it's going to come out to be. At the moment it's at 1 by scale, and it's imported it in at its native resolution as whatever that sprite is. So let's imagine that I'm putting it into the game like that, and the character's going to be like running around like that. And let's say that compared to the size of the screen of the iPhone, that's sort of about how I wanted it to look. And I test the game on my emulator. Let's see what it looks like. And yeah, that sort of looks like I can imagine that that would be about the rightish sort of size. So, what is it to press the home button? Shift Command H. Shift Command H. Okay. So what I then need to do to import that image into my actual project at all the different sizes, I want to create that artwork so it is that correct pixel size. So on a so that is 115 points wide. So you can see that there's actually a whole bunch of transparent pixels. So that is the actual size of the graphics that I want to appear into my final game, which is 115 pixels. We can shave off that 0.625. 115 would be about right. So what I would actually do to get that is I would go over here to my my hero artwork, which I've corrected so that it was all actually the correct artwork size, and I've got another script which I use called scale to width. And under the hood it uses iPhone's SIPS program, which is the scriptable image processing system, and it takes various parameters that you can use to modify stuff. I've just wrapped that into a shell script which scales things according to just the width, and that's just going to scale the height proportionally, and it produces at the end of it 3 images, and it produces the artwork in the standard definition, the Retina definition, and the Retina 3x definition that we require for the iPhone 6 Plus and any other devices that Apple happens to come up with that require 3+ artwork. And how I would actually go about importing that, let me just kill that off, is I would create a new file, which is going to be our game assets file. So let me create an asset catalog, which is one of these things. It's basically just kind of like a specially anointed and appointed folder that goes into the structure of our project. So we're going to add that game assets into the project like that. And then inside of that I'm going to create a sprite atlas. So I'm going to create one for our hero. And you can see that by default what it actually wants is to create these 3 slots. Now you saw that when I was doing the icon I kind of had to let's just see, before I switch over to that new thing, I'm just going to try to get this artwork imported for you guys so you can see what that looks like. So get that over there. So here's my game tech folder where I'm working out of, and you can see that I created my hero in my 3 separate sizes. So once I have that, all I need to do is drop it like that, and it will actually create a correctly named entry with a universal size. It'll give it the correct name, and it'll automatically create the 3 different artwork sizes for you. So then what I want to do is actually get rid of this one here which I scaled, delete that out, remove it all together. I also want to remove this blank entry. And by the way guys, there is a trap with this. If you are in here and I was to hit the delete button on my keyboard right now, you will often get the case where it'll actually delete this whole entire assets tree. Oh my god, that's so painful. I believe now if you do that it will give you a warning, but it's still best to use the right click and remove just belt and braces, so we don't remove the thing we really did not want to remove. Right, so we have, I'm just going to double check now that we still have our hero sitting in our game scene, and I'll try looking at that. Should still work, hopefully. Build it into our catalog. Now what that is going to do behind the scenes, we have our assets folder, and if I look over here at the compile process for building our debug build, it's actually going to compile our asset catalog, and if I look inside of here, it's going to use this thing called AC tool to actually compress our asset catalog and compile it into the app bundle and actually produce a complete Sprite Atlas. So even though I put it into that Sprite Atlas as a folder, and if we come over here and have a look at what did I call it? Where did I put it? What's the complete part? Users build. Users says build. Twitch TV. And we're just going to have a look inside of our folder here. And our XC assets file. So you can see that the Sprite Atlas thing actually includes these JSON files, which are kind of invisible. All of this stuff actually means that, of course, you can just check it straight into source control and it's not going to kind of get lost. Also opens the paths to use like third-party tools and things if you want. But even though that's actually a folder, it is actually going to compile it as part of that compile process that we were looking at a second ago into an actual compressed Sprite Atlas. And you know, because we have the ability to specify that in here. Let's see. You know, I can actually say what kind of compression I want, lossless or whatever, and you know, you get that all of those savings. It's kind of nice to not have to mess around. Back in the old days when I was working with Cocos 2D, I actually used various compression atlases and stuff. And if you want to, you can still use those, but just for getting quick things started, it's actually pretty nice. So we saw that working. All right, guys, let's just hope now that we can quit out of Xcode, and I'm going to hopefully run our new Xcode beta. Please work. I'm just going to really hope that you actually just work, and I don't have to get upset and angry and say bad words. Because that's super unladylike when I do that. One thing you guys will hopefully notice if I get this to work, please work, like seriously, just work. iPhone 6. By the way, I've been running this meetup group, so if there's any women who wind up watching this cast or the recordings later, hey guys, I'm super happy that you're watching my video. Women Who Code is a really awesome meetup group. We've got one here in Brisbane that my amazing buddies at ThoughtWorks help organize. And yeah, really empowering. Dudes, you can even come along and help if you want. But, you know, it's really good to have a safe space there for women as well. Show up and just network and talk about the projects you're working on. We'll often have some talks. That stuff is happening in cities all over the place too. So if you're watching this from the US, I totally recommend checking out the local chapter of Women Who Code or any other group. So it's just processing some symbol files right now. I'm just going to... We saw a minute ago how I could resize a bunch of those files. One thing I noticed when I was actually looking at these assets was that these dead ones were 605 and these ones were all 614, which is kind of annoying. So if I create a new, whoops, just going to go in here. Okay, so now all of our ones that are annoyingly different are in a separate folder. So you saw me resize that image, right? So I resized it to 115 pixels using my scale to width thing. I should also be able to do the same kind of thing for this. So what I want to do is scale when I'm working out a thing like this and there's a chance it could go wrong, it's actually not a bad idea to just echo the command out first. Let's see if that works. Oops. Yeah, that looks all right. If that was an RM or something and I messed it up, echoing, I would have been able to see if there was something wrong. Sometimes if there's an escape character, but that should work. Yeah. So now I actually have a whole huge bunch of sprites there that I could just import straight into my project. Let's try running it on there. Finally, it's like, seriously, was that so hard? Now let's see if I can do this part of it again, which I was trying to do before. Amazingly enough. Freaking amazing. See, got a cute little icon. It's now coming up on the screen there. What's happening over here? Taking a little while to launch. I guess it's like totally just still installing. I don't know what that means. So what I could actually do, I'm just going to demonstrate this now whilst that stuff is happening. I'm just go in here and create a few more sprite atlases. Oops, so we're going to have one for our zombie female character that you saw. And I'm going to have another one for sprite atlas. Sprite atlas, where are you? Zombie male. Yeah, so we're going to have those guys. Now, I'm just going to like actually cut out here to these ones that I already did in advance, hopefully. Dropbox sprites. Just because you don't need to see me running lots and lots of resizing stuff over and over again. You can see kind of what the process is anyway. Basically what I did was just ran that on all of these zombies. So I'm just going to kill that off. Delete that. Let's see if I can just double check that that actually ran properly. Having a few issues over the USB cable. So it knows it's an iPhone 6. Definitely does. And we should be able to oh, wrong version of Xcode. Sorry guys. Xcode beta. Always allow. Normally this stuff is way, way easier. The only reason you're seeing all of these crazy hiccups is because I was like unplugging and replugging, and it was because I was doing some development on my actual real game on Friday, and I kind of left stuff kind of half done, kind of half messed up. Hallelujah freaking Luya. QuickTime Player. Alright, so you can actually see that we've got that working there now, which is good. And if I just kill that off, I'm just going to kill everything off that's on this phone. I'll just do that so you can see what I'm doing here. Go away. And normally, of course, I would not have to worry about that stuff. Now look at that frame rate, 60 frames a second, right? And also I've got the real touch interaction. That like, seriously, I promise, without a word of a lie, it is almost never this hard. At least there wasn't any signing issues. If you guys have seen a lot of signing problems when you've done development directly to iPhone hardware before, the reason probably is because you're not using you know, the complete iPhone toolchain. Like, I literally just plugged that in and I have my little automatically managed signing thing, and guess what? It automatically manages the signing for you. So that's nice. Alright, so we've got some icons happening, we've got a tile map happening. I'm going to import a bunch of artwork. Now, this process could actually give my IDE a bit of a major headache, because I'm just going to drop a whole buttload of shit right in there. But it just kind of dealt with it, so that's good. Remove selected items. So like you saw, for each one of these lines I actually dropped in 3 different separate PNG files. And why would you want to do that? Why? Well, the reason is, if someone buys this crazy iPhone or this ridiculous iPad, what those people want is they want to see gorgeous retina artwork. And the way you need to do that is to put these 3x times artwork items in there. And that thing is 300 pixels in size. And if you scale up your 1 times artwork to 3 times and put it on someone's iPhone 6 Plus, it is going to look absolutely awful. Seriously. And it's also one of the reasons that Apple might reject your game. And they won't tell you, right? They'll just say, it doesn't look good. And you know what? They're just going to say, nah. So if your artwork is coming in at these high resolution sizes, you know what? Why not actually import all 3 sizes and get high quality artwork into your game? Another reason too is that when you use the genuine Xcode, Apple's app slicing is going to be able to create a separate download package for the device. You get that for free. You don't have to do anything. You upload it, and what it's going to do is when someone connects to iTunes with their old school iPad, they will get the 1 times artwork. They connect with a 3 times device, they will get the 3 times artwork. 2 times artwork, same thing. So they're not going to have to download all 3 of these files onto their device. You might have to upload them, but don't worry, you're going to get that nice slim download pack size. And of course, it's going to be compressed into a sprite sheet for you. You don't have to worry about that either. Now, obviously, we've got a lot of artwork here. What happens if that's too big to fit into a single, say, a 2048 or a 4096 texture, whatever the maximum texture size is? Well, the good news is that the asset building process is actually going to compile separate sprite atlases into a sprite dictionary for you with a number of pages. Those pages, you don't have to worry about them. It's just going to get referenced in your game for free. So we're going to put in our female dead zombie as well into this folder. So we're just going to kind of get automatically added there. and add in our hero artwork as well, which is over here. Going to keep importing all of this stuff in. In case you missed the stream earlier, if you're coming in later and you missed how I did this, I have a command line tool, which is my little scale to width script. I also earlier demonstrated my icon generation script, which is that one which creates icons for me. If you want to know where to get them from, those are on my they're on my GitHub. Yeah, that's what it's called, GitHub. So they're just sitting right here. You can go pull them down. They're actually really incredibly simple. All they do is use this SIPs tool underneath. You might even want to play around and just create your own scripts, but you're free to use these if you want. They're just sitting there. Not too hard to do. You don't need to be a superhero in the terminal to use these things. Yeah, pretty simple really. Yeah, so that's how I do that. Can add in our hero artwork into here. We got a kind of a double up there. I'll just remove that. Going to add in our hero dead artwork as well. Now, of course, if you're not familiar with game development and you're wondering why we have all these multiple images of our hero, it is, of course, because these are sprite animations. They're frames of animation that are get used once we have our sprite sheet. So I'm going to do the last one, which is going to be our male zombie over here. I'm going to drop that guy in. Boy zombie. Going to come across, get dropped in. I'm really making it work for its money in here. Ah. I should be able to drag those in. If I left them outside of the sprite sheet, it would just create image files that weren't in a sprite sheet, and we do kind of want these in sprite sheets. So it's just rewriting all of those JSON files. You saw earlier that there's kind of an invisible JSON file there. So under the hood, the reason that's taking a second is it's not just doing a straight file copy. It's actually rewriting those JSON files around for us. Okay. I'm going to just remove those ones because I sort of... No, it should be all right. Okay, so we've got a bit of a scene happening here. We've got our hero. How do we do an animation? So let's have a look at that for now, just quickly. I'm going to create an animation file. I said this was live coding. I haven't actually done any actual writing of any actual code. So just to prove that I do know how to type code, I'm just going to briefly set this up here. So when I built this project at the beginning, I told it to go and do gameplay kit integration, and what that causes Sprite Kit to do is it creates a special game scene that knows how to use these entities and graphs, and under the hood our game view controller does it in this way. So it creates a GK scene, which is just a superclass of SK scene that knows how to store entities and graphs, which are our gameplay kit components, and it's going to pull those out of the SKS file, which is our game scene.sks file just there, and it's going to get all of the entities and graphs and poke them into our game scene member variables, and then of course by the time this braced scope exits, this is Swift code that we're looking at, by the time that exits, that let variable will have gone out of scope, and the GK scene file, which was our serialized data, that will be garbage collected and it will disappear, and the only remaining copy of it is going to be our scene, which has been presented into the view. So that's what that code there is doing. Now that is all going to remain the same, but what I have actually done in the past is I have my project here that I did for my SpriteKit versus Unity talk, where I created some components, and let me just go over here. Just make sure it's up to date. I think this is just documentation, actually. The stuff that it's pulling down now. Again, you guys are welcome to pull down this project. The reason I'm going to get this is, like, what I imagine is that in the future folks will be working to create a lot of these components and making them available via open source like I've done. So with Gameplay Kit, I'm just going to throw away that. Okay, so with Gameplay Kit, it's got this new component-based stuff, and my prediction is a lot of people are going to be making stuff available like I've done here with all of these cool components. So yeah, it's going to make it possible to just quickly get projects running by being able to take advantage of open source components. So let's imagine we're doing that, and our Twitch TV Marco. Hey Marco, I hope you're still there, dude. I hope I haven't bored you out of your brain, or maybe you had to go and get dinner. That would be completely understandable. If you had to go and get dinner, I'm going to allow you to go and get dinner. You actually have permission. So I'm just going to drag in these components in here, along with a bunch of other things, as well as these components. So each one of these components inherits directly from GK components. They're all kind of roughly the same. GK component. These ones are kind of support files that I've created to just help with my workflow. And I've also imported into here some stuff that comes out of Ray Wenderlich. So I totally recommend, if you are getting into sprite kit development, check out Ray Wenderlich's site. He's got some awesome tutorials over here for Swift. You can just jump in and search for Swift sprite kit stuff, and he's got some cool tutorials there. And one of the things he has in a lot of his stuff, and it also comes if you buy any of his books, is this SKU tools classes, which have a bunch of stuff. And I'm as I mentioned in the license, his stuff is copyright Raiseware, but he has an FAQ there where he says that you can just use it for free if you want. But please just be aware of that. If you go and use his stuff, you may be obliged to also abide by that license. So don't forget that. I'm using it here, which I'm also making it freely available. So now that I've added that into this project, let me just import those files. So we've got our components, our support files, and our utilities, which we're going to add in. So now we have a bunch of those components there. So for example, like, they're pretty simple. There's not that many lines of code. I've got a component here now which is going to actually set up animations for given sprites in a game. So if I'm editing a scene here, what I could actually do is create some animations. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm just going to quickly check, guys. Guys, if you're listening, please drop some questions in, because there is a delay, but it's not too huge. It's a few seconds. It's kind of a killer, but please dump in some questions, and I'm going to be working through kind of the material that I did up for the talk. Hey Marco, you're still here. Oh wow. If your blood sugar is getting low, dude, you know, go totally grab some snacks and come right back. But yeah, so ask some questions. I'm going to later start veering away a little bit because I'll start to run out of the material, and I plan to stream for about another 60 minutes, and then I'm just going to be too exhausted. I'm going to stop and maybe come back to this. But if I don't get to your question during this tutorial right now, I will try to get to it later, so feel free to drop those in there. Right. All right, so how do we do I'm just going to inherit my scene now from my new gameplay scene, which is in my GK support file here. So my gameplay scene, all it does is it kind of replaces the stuff. It's got my entities and graphs in here, but I also create this was loaded thing, and the reason I like to do that is it kind of I worked a little bit with Unity, and with Unity you kind of have this, you've got your components and they have like their update, you know what I mean? So if I look over here at say this component, we've got our update, which is like our Unity update method. But then what I like to have is also this was loaded thing, and this is going to apply right when the component is first loaded into a scene, but it's not going to be any heavy duty stuff that's going to happen during an update cycle. So we can do stuff that's a little bit more that we want to push off to not be happening every time during an update. So yeah, so that's all that is doing. And again, that's part of my open source stuff. You're welcome to grab that, and that's MIT licensed. You can do whatever you want. I've also put some touch stuff in there. So this is going to replace their template thing. And we're just going to pull out all of that stuff that creates that spinny node that is in there. And it should still go right ahead and load the scene, because what we have got is we've got our setup entities. So let's just print, hey, Twitch heroes, Marco and Crooks. You guys are the stayers. And also, hi Mom. Okay, so let's see if we have lost our gameplay scene by doing that. Maybe we have. I hope we haven't. It would be super neat if we didn't lose it. So it's recompiling. Build succeeded. Pushing it to the phone. And it's kind of a bit quicker now, right? Now that we've actually kind of got all our libraries synced up and stuff. And we've got our hi Marco, and we got it all in there. All right, so it's still deserialized our SKS file. It still created the scene. It still loaded it. It still put it in there. Nice. So we didn't lose anything. Whew. Right, so now let's try to see what is going to happen when I want to put in some animations. So I'm just going to add in a new file. And it's going to be an actions file, SpriteKit actions. My actions, these are going to be the hero actions. Some actions for our hero. Yep. And it's going to be an SKS file, but this time it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a frame-based animation. Texture-based animation? Yeah. So we're going to name it, and it's going to be Hero Run. It's going to be the first one. It's going to be a animate with textures. Whoops, which you can put in there. And we're going to have Hero Idle. Oh, guys, you know what it is? Seriously, this keyboard, it's not a very accurate keyboard. This keyboard, it makes a lot of typographical errors. I really ought to replace it. Okay. Little in-joke there. So, Hero Idle, and we're going to create 4 animations in total. We're going to create Hero die, because my hero can die, and we're going to add in animate with textures to that one, and we're going to create finally hero attack. And these are going to correspond to all of our animations. That's also going to be animate with textures. So for our hero run, hero run. Now what we want to do this can be a little bit frustrating at times. Hero run. Sometimes it'll let you draw a box around them. Sometimes it just won't. Sigh. Let's just check out a hero idle. Let's have some. I want my instant gratification and I want it now. Hero idle. Can't spell idle because I suck. Usually I have a bit more screen real estate and it's a bit easier to do this stuff. So in our game scene here, I should be able to navigate to our hero node. I'm just going to, one thing I would recommend as well is to always name all these things. I'm going to call this garden background. Kind of imagining that, like, you know, maybe this is a zombie horror house and all the zombies go loose in the garden. We'll call this base layer. It's really helpful when you're debugging to actually have all these layers and stuff. So here's our hero. Now what I want to do is animate our hero. So let's just open up the animations tab here. As I say, normally I would have a little bit more real estate. So I can, just to kind of preview things, I actually put in the hero idle animation in there. Now what I want to do is actually make that loop infinitely. Have it apply to a hero. See if that works. It's a bit hard to see, but there you go. That is actually animating. And it's doing it in real time. Yeah, so that is why, so I could actually get rid of that and replace it with our hero run if I wanted to. Make it loop infinitely. In this, like, you could, you know, you can actually have a counter number of times or whatever if you want. So like 3 times, like let's say you had a hammer that came and hit 3 times or something like that. You can actually specify that. And there's our animation, so we can actually test stuff out. I'm going to leave it like that. I could probably tune it a bit if I wanted to. I could come in here to our actions. Here are actions, and I could like change the amount of time that this actually happened. So what I want to do with my run is loop that infinitely. So I could actually change it from being 1 second if I wanted to make it run a bit faster, make it perform those animations slightly faster. I think that might be nicer. Our hero is going to attack constantly when she does attack. I'm going to fill that up with our hero melee attack. Oh my god, guys, the box select actually worked. Unbelievable. Empty-dums, come out of that. And we'll try the attack. See what that looks like. Melee attack there, yay, not too bad. Now what does this actually mean? If I put an animation onto my hero like that, you can see it's like running permanently. Now if I run that onto our actual hero on the device and just have it embedded straight in the SKS file, what is that actually going to do in terms of our game? Well, obviously it's just going to launch the game and it's going to go straight into animating the hero, hopefully. Wow, that's really... Why is that so slow? It says it's doing 60 frames a second. It's like really crawling for some reason. It's really strange. Oops. Sarah, why did you do that? Why did I press buttons when I didn't need to? So if I look at my hero actions here, by the way, this actions file was the one from the template, so we don't need that. I'm just going to delete that. Move it to the trash rather than deleting the reference. It's really funny how slow that was. I don't know why that was so slow. Let's make it a bit faster. There's no way that would have made it that slow normally. Just go into our hero actions, hero attack, and that is looped. Alright, so that should be correct, and we'll just animate our hero. Why is that so slow? Hero attack. Okay, that's a bit better, right? It's kind of a bit faster. We should get that same exact speed when we run it on the device. So let's just check that out. You pre-building. Pre-building is usually bad. Usually. I'm just going to have to re-establish my connection here. One thing that's kind of nice with Xcode is that typically every time you do a little bit of work, it saves it directly into those files, those SKS files, those serializations. So every time I tweak something, it's kind of like having autosave running all the time. So I think we actually are going to get the big pinwheel of death here, which is kind of unfortunate. Hopefully we haven't lost too much. Full script. Xcode beta. Please let me have not lost too much. I would like very much to have not lost too much. Quick time. There's some kind of set order where if you like do it in the right order, it sort of kind of works, and then other ways it doesn't. Hey, please work. Okay, so we have that. Kind of asking a lot, aren't I? Huh. Let's just have a little bit of care with clicking on buttons. Totally bizarre. That's really like super slow. I have no idea why it would do that. Really, really odd. I'll try the running one, see if it does it for the running one. Actually, let's go ahead and see if we can hook up some components to our hero. So, in the old days, pre-iOS 10, what you'd have to do is create your custom class in here, inherit from that, and put all your class in there in code. Hopefully what I'm going to be able to do now is actually get our component to do it for us. So we're going to use our assets. So we've got all these animations here. We've got hero, attack, run, die, and idle. So looking at our hero, we've got hero attack, hero die, hero idle, and hero run. Right. Now let's just have a look at the code that I wrote for this. Again, you should be able to just grab my code and use it. What's going to happen is that when that SKS file is serialized, it will pull out the entity attached to that sprite, and inside of this game scene, it will inherit from the gameplay scene, which is this thing right here. And when it moves to the scene, which happens inside of game view controller here, as I call present scene, it will move to the scene. Gameplay scene over here we'll call did move to view, which in turn is going to be calling setup entities. And what I have with my entities is anytime an entity has a component such as an animate state, if it implements this loadable protocol, let's have a look at loadable. The loadable protocol is here. All it does is says, hey, I am loadable if and only if I have a wasLoaded function and I extend entities so that GK entity knows how to call wasLoaded by just going through all of its components and calling wasLoaded on them. So that is how the entities in a scene suddenly magically know how to call wasLoaded. It's just purely because I have these little helper classes inside of here, which is just going to make it a little bit nicer to actually call the initialization code inside of this component. And that's all that is just a simple way to say, hey, our wasLoaded stuff is going to get called. And what is the wasLoaded thing going to do? It's going to set up these animations on our, oops, this one. So here's our mob state, which is a component that is loadable. It has a state machine associated with it, and it knows how to handle these 4 animations. And it's hopefully going to call them based on the state of our little player here. So let's see if this actually works. Super neat if it did. Be really surprised if it did. Might work. Did that actually idle? Okay, so I needed to have a physics body on my little dude there. Alright, well, we can do that. We can have a physics body. Now, on our scene, let's add a physics body by doing this first. I'll give it a bounding circle. Try that way. See if that works. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, so what happened was I forgot to turn physics off for the scene. So the very second the game loaded, our hero fell off the game. That is so hilarious. Guys, you are allowed to laugh at me. Yes. Bring it, bring it. Physics, so good when it works. Nice. All right, so I might just go to our scene and I am going to have 0 gravity. So we can turn off gravity. And hero. I'm just going to, let's see, what am I, wait, what? So I'm going to delete this hero and re-add it. Delete. Delete, delete. Hero, idle, go, 115. Scale 1 because it was scaled before. Physics body, bounding circle. And I'm gonna call it hero. add those components back in again to our mob state, which is going to be hero attack, hero die, hero idle, hero run. Now, if you actually use Playgrounds, or if you have a Mac desktop game, you can actually preview those things directly without even... So we assigned that is that actually animating or not? Can't tell. Okay, we'll just quit out of that. And over here in our mob state, so we assigned the state machine to our hero. Let's see if our update loop is actually getting called. And we're going to check out some slightly interesting feature. So that got called, and I think that got called, so this should be getting called. Now what happens if we look at this can actually look. Oh, seriously, you're so annoying. Normally it would actually let you load that. Go around again. Don't believe it. Oh, that is annoying me so much that what I am actually going to do is print mob state. Swift has our nice little thing there. Hopefully allow us to current state. What I'm actually going to do is if let actual state equals mob state. So this is Swift's unpacking of optionals. I nearly typed FML for fuck my life. No. Finite state machine equals mob state. So what I could do is, I know that that is, that's a bit blah, stupid, but I'm just debugging this right now. What my code does here is it basically just detects if the object is moving at all, and if it is, then it puts it into the move state, otherwise it puts it into the idle state. So we should actually see that happen. So it is allegedly going into the idle state. Could well be that this, oh, did I, how far did I get with this? Hero actions, I did create the idle action, didn't I? Yeah, hero idle. I'll just do the hero die one. Hero dead. This could be our problem right here. I'm an idiot. I didn't make it. So dumb. So dumb. And our dead hero is going to get texture animation in here with the dead. Lots of dead. Now for this dead one, in fact, after we die, we are going to fade out. Better to fade away, right? So fade out. So we die and we fade out. Let's just try that up here in our game scene with our hero and our hero die. So it looks like, yeah, not bad, right? A little fast, maybe. It's kind of just a bit too fast, I think. Hero actions. Hero die. Maybe it takes 2 seconds for the death animation. Still happening super quick. Should be like a, so hero die should take 3 seconds. So let's make sure that it takes 3 seconds. That's about right. Right, so we have our idle now. Let's just see if that works. I'm going to go, we already debugged this quite a bit, so, although, you know what, I want to see if I can get this state machine thing working. It's supposed to work. Yay! So yeah, so it gives you something where you can actually visualize it. So yeah, it's definitely in the idle state now, which is kind of cool. So that stuff is at least working. Get rid of that breakpoint. So we got our hero to actually appear in the scene there. I'll just run it again because I saw it on the phone just down there, but you guys probably missed it because I didn't have the screen echoing. So just get rid of that. So it is actually the real thing. Yay! She's rocking her little cowboy hat. I'll just bring up the echo. See it there? So it's running the idle. There's some weird kind of artifacts, which is probably some sort of sizing issue, which is a bit annoying. Anyway, that stuff can be fixed. So I'm just going to build on this real quick. I'm just going to do a couple more quick tweaks here. So we have a launch screen storyboard. This is kind of like another thing that happened. I made it a little bit easier to actually get this how you want it. So you used to have to create all these defaults and stuff, but if you know you're on iOS now, you can kind of get rid of all those multiple default files that are all full of crazy stuff. I'm just going to create my thing here now, and because this is a view controller, it can hopefully manage rotation properly, so I don't have to have multiple things for which way I'm rotated or anything. Now let's see if I can actually find my logo and my game screen, Smithsoft logo. It's not the one actually. Dropbox logo. I actually kind of like to have a little folder in here. Clean this up. Resources, just to tidy things up. If you guys have never worked with Xcode before, by the way, it's got this crazy thing where it's got these yellow groups. So this thing is, if I go, like, I could select all those, and what I could do is I could go new group from selection, and it's just going to like put all of those things into a group. Now it's not actually creating a folder on the file system when I do that, but it can. So in the case here, for example, there is a folder that corresponds to the group. And the reason why is because when I imported stuff, I said, bring this stuff in, and whenever you find a folder, create a corresponding group to go with it. So there is some subtleties around that. And if I'm creating a really big project, what I actually like to do is have these yellow groups correspond with actual physical folders. But just for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put these kind of resources and things into here. So where's my logo? I'm just going to drop it into here. That's the create groups thing I was talking about. I'm going to go into my launch screen storyboard, and I'm going to add image right in the middle. And the image is going to be a logo. You kind of want this to be white, don't we? Is that right? Yeah, it's better. And the content mode is going to be, I'm going to keep the aspect ratio. We want to center it in the container. Don't want a stack view. Why would I want a stack view? Let's see if that worked. See if we get like a launch screen now. That's hilarious. Okay, so we've got our idling player. All right, let's get this looking like a game. Let's get some interaction into this. I'm just going to fix this logo. Didn't I just say the horizontal and then I kind of want it about there. It's like try that. Sometimes, you know what, I just try stuff. And game scene. So we're going to go to hero, and in here, what I did actually was, it can be like those of you who have worked with Unity, and Kieran Lord, who is an absolute legend with Unity, taught me this trick. When you're building your components and so on, you want to make them kind of durable so that they actually survive, you know, like not make them so brittle that they won't survive, you know, accidents of being decoupled from the wrong sprite or the wrong node in your file, so you can sort of make them auto-discover things. And the same kind of logic happens here. You've seen how it loads itself. And in the case you saw before, it says, look, it can complain and say, I need a physics component. So what I actually did was I created something which I call a player character. And what that does is it does two things. It sets up the physics body for you in advance, and it also loads an agent into the sprite, into the entity, so that it can take part in AI calculations, because you've got multiple calculations that are running every frame. With a gameplay kit game, you've got the update loop. Behind the scenes, you've got all those actions that are going to be animated. You have got a physics system, which is, again, that is being solved in real time. And then you've got your artificial intelligence stuff, so your AI stuff. And in the case of our agents, that is going to need to be set up here as well, so a GK agent. So if I do that, then I don't need to manually set up our sprite body, and we'll be able to get our collisions and everything happening, which is just what we use. So we can add that. I also created a component that makes it move around when you touch it. It's really super simple. It just basically picks up whenever you touch the screen by using the update method, and it's got this touchable thing which our gameplay scene uses in a similar manner to the loadable thing. It just checks for touchable components. It says, hey, were you interested in this touch? And it says, yeah, sure I was. I want to do stuff with it. So we can add those onto our hero here. And we're going to move with touch. We have a speed of, say, 250 maybe. Sounds good. And we're going to also be a player character, which is that one. And I'll move that one. Can I do that? Will it let me do that? Shouldn't make any difference anyway. Alright, let's see what this looks like. Please work. Be super nice, super neat if you worked. Cool. Right, so what's happening is each time I touch this screen, it's passing the touch into the game scene thing as the location in that node, and the little character is just being given a command to run there. Now, we have a problem, of course, because at the moment we can't move off of our area. It's actually kind of fun moving around, and when the character stops, it goes into this idle state. Cool. It's starting to look a little bit more like a game, isn't it? Now what happens, let's add a zombie. Guys, actually, look, you know what? I'm going to follow this up at a later date with a bit more stuff, and this has been real. I'm just going to have a look and see if you guys had any questions. Oh, you're so nice. Glitches. Yeah, you felt it, right? I know, right? It's real. Yeah, so we have some stuff happening. I'm going to follow this up in about a week's time with more of what you've seen here, more components. There's going to be zombies. Zombies are going to attack. There's going to be some AI. There's going to be a bunch of stuff happening. But I hope I've whetted your appetite for what can be done with Xcode and 2D games. It is super fun, and all of this shit is free. I have made my code freely available. If you want to try some of this stuff out, if you manage to dust off some dusty old MacBook and try this stuff out, and you run into some problems, please just take a note of them. Tweet at me using my Twitter here, Sarah_J_Smith. That's me. I'm probably the easiest to find using that, and I will take note of that stuff. And thank you, Brian. You're a legend. Yay. I will take note of that stuff, and I will endeavour to address those problems that you had in my next stream, which I'm hoping to do next weekend. Yeah. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your massive, massive patience as I messed around with stuff. Look, we did actually get a workflow going in the end here, right, with this real device. So I hope I sold you on that. And next time it won't be... Yes, Marco, you're a legend. Please hit the follow button. Yes, because that is going to work. I'm going to know that you are there. You are going to get a reminder when I get onto my stream. I'm going to try to do Saturday. It might possibly be Sunday, but it's going to be about the same time-ish. Because it turns out that on the weekend I need coffee, and getting up in the morning is not working for me. It's going to be about the same time-ish. If any of you guys were actually winding up being in the States, I know this is kind of in the midnight for you. Please tweet at me if this is too late, and I'll try to pull it back a bit closer, more towards the middle of our day on Australian East Coast Standard Time. And that will allow you guys to actually maybe have a little bit earlier, like 10 p.m. or something. But yeah, thank you so much again. Thank you for watching. Please, thank you for following the stream. Thank you also especially to Marco. Marco, I think I'm going to give you, there's got to be a way to give you ops on my channel so that you can help with things, because you've certainly earned them, dude. By, like, seriously, if you were not there, I think I would have pulled the plug out. Yeah, got some stuff done. Hooray! Yeah, but I am going to go have dinner now because I can feel my blood sugar dropping, and I am going to get lower and lower quality the further I go. So we will do this again in roughly a week, and I will see you soon. Thanks. Bye, guys. Hitting the off button.